or afternoon or evening, whichever time you happen to be watching this video. We are now on day 7. So I do want to remind you before I get started to look at the D2L because you will have 3 assignments: the Modify 1 exercise, the Modify 2 exercise, and the Polyline backgammon exercise. And please note that the Modify 1 exercise also contains the kitchen appliances, which you'll draw in the small box at the bottom of your drawing. It's explained a little bit more further on the D2L and within the assignment, but don't forget those. And this video will contain the second part of your editing functions that you're going to need to know. So to start off, I am literally going to go to the circle command. And don't forget, for circle, you can type in CI for starting that command, but I'm going to go to circle. Oh, another thing I'm going to note down here at the bottom, let's see if I can make this a little smaller, is I am in architectural units right down here. I do have my OSNAP on. At the moment, I do not have ortho on. I could turn that on, or I could keep it on polar. I'll just switch it to ortho. But these are my settings that I have for this drawing. I'll make this a little larger. So making a circle, I'm going to go to circle. I'm going to select a center point, just about right here, and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to say that I want it to be a 2-foot radius. So there's my circle. And then I'm also going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to start it over here, and I'm going to give it, dimensions of, how about 6 feet, 3 feet. And then just so I can show you some differences in a little bit, I am going to draw the same rectangle with lines instead of polylines because this was using the rectangle command. So I'm going to go to line, and I'll just make it even with this, but I'm going to start here, go out 6 feet, and then come straight up with ortho on, 3 feet, enter, 6 feet, enter, and then I'm going to go and close that. So I have a circle, I have a polyline rectangle, and then I have a basic line rectangle. If I can select all those, there are 4 lines for that. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to teach you is scale. You can scale up or down anything on your AutoCAD drawing. So if I go to scale, which happens to be right here above the modify command, if I click that, it now asks me to select objects, kind of the start of a lot of things, right? So if I select this circle, and then I can select more objects. As you notice, it says select objects, so I can select more. I'm not going to at this point. I'm just going to hit enter. And then if I wanted to scale exactly from the center, I would have to make sure that I actually let my OSNAP snap to the center. So if we went down to our OSNAP or object snap settings, notice I do this time have center selected. So that is just going to be a default that I can select at any time. And while I'm here, notice that I also have another one on at the moment called node. That we're going to find out what that is in just a moment. But if you want to go ahead and check that on, you can, or I'll come back to that later. Okay, so I have the center as an option. Oops, let's make sure that's back on. And I'm going to actually select my base point for the center of the circle. Notice as soon as I do that, I haven't hit anything yet. I'm just pulling with my mouse, but I could actually pull to the size I want or shrink to the size I want, but that's not accurate. And remember, in AutoCAD, we want to be very precise and accurate in our drawings. So right now it's a 2-foot radius. Let's say the table. Let's say they actually want like a 4-foot radius table. Okay, well, 2 feet to 4 feet, if you do the math, would be a scale of 2 because you want to go twice as big. So I would literally hit, notice down here it's saying specify scale factor or copy reference. I'll show those in a second, but specify scale factor. I can say 2. Oops, I actually put 3. So let's do that again. 2 and enter. Now this happens to be twice as big as the other. And you're saying, well, how do I know that? I mean, am I really sure that that's that way? Did AutoCAD really do that right? So one thing I'm going to show you in this video is something very wonderful up here. It's supposed to be right here on actually quick, but quick measure is over here on your ribbon. And quick is the default. So once you select that and then go anywhere in your drawing, notice it's saying it's 4 feet. Go over here to this rectangle. It will literally pinpoint the edges and say it's 3 foot by 6 foot. And notice even in the corners, it is saying it is at perfect right angles. So that's another way to check to see if you had your ortho on to make sure that they were straight lines. Same thing if I go over here, no matter if it's lines or a polyline, it will tell me my exact measurements of those. And if I actually get out of that, notice it will still tell me that that's 6 feet. It's close enough to actually pick that up. But as soon as I get away, it doesn't see it anymore. Okay. So it will pinpoint dimensions or measurements according to where your cursor is. So I'm going to hit escape. Let's go back to that scale again. So if I go to scale and select this, and let's say they actually want to go half that size. Okay, I'm going to hit enter because I'm done selecting. If they wanted it to scale down from maybe the edge of the circle instead of the center, notice another OSNAP that I have on at the moment. It's called quadrant, which means it'll pick up the edge at each of these basic 4 corners. I know they're not corners, but they're the quadrants of the circle. So to turn that on, you would have to go to OSNAP and actually select quadrant as one of your options. So if I selected this quadrant, notice now the scale is dependent on that point as a base point. So if I wanted it to be half the size, personally, I think the easiest way is to go 0.5 and hit enter. But if I undo that, going to the undo command, and I'm going to go to scale again, and I'm going to select this again and hit enter, I'm still going to select the quadrant. But this time, I also can go 1 and then the slash, or, like you divide 1 divided by 2. It's still half. Okay, so it's still half the size. So it's kind of your preference on how you would want to do that, but those are 2 different ways to do half of a measurement. Let's say that you have something that maybe involves a little bit more math. You actually can go to distance. That one is selecting 2 points. So when I select that, if I say I want the distance from this quadrant side to this quadrant side, now it's saying 4 feet. They have a 4-foot diameter, let's say that again, table, and they want it, let's say, to 5 feet. Let's try that again with the scale. So I'm going to go to scale. I'm going to select this, okay, and I'm going to select my base point to be this side now, so we can actually see it grow. And I'm going to say R for reference, and my reference length, it's actually saying 4 feet already, but I'm going to say I want the reference length to be from here, so I'm going to click to here. So now that is saying right down here, specify reference length 4 feet. It's asking for a new length. Do I want to go to 3 feet? Do I want to go bigger? Okay, I actually want to go bigger. I want to go to 5 feet. So I hit 5 feet and enter, and it got bigger. So now if I go to measure with the distance, not the quick,
and select this point and this point, it's now 5 feet. So you can use the reference if you don't want to do the math. Sometimes that can be easier, sometimes not. So it's all dependent on if you're a math wizard or not. So that's another option. Another thing is, I don't know if you noticed this, but if we go to scale, I'm going to select the same thing again, and I want actually a copy of what I scaled. What? So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to say a base point of the center again. But I want to scale down, but I still want to keep my original. Maybe they just want an edge to show for their table. So they actually want 2 circles. Yes, I could do offset, or I could use this copy scale. So I have a 5-foot radius. Maybe I need to show another one that's half of that size. Okay, so I could say, okay, my scale factor is half, but I have another option down here, copy, as well as my reference. So I can say C for copy. Now it knows to actually make a copy from the original, and then it's asking for the scale factor. So I could say 0.5, and now I have both an inner circle and an outer circle. So that's another option if you don't want to use offset, or if you want to copy instead while you're scaling. It's kind of dependent on how you're working. Okay, so that's scale in one way, but let's keep in mind the scale base point. Scale, I'm going to select this time this entire rectangle, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to select this point on the edge. If I select that point, it will scale up and down from that corner. Okay, so if you wanted it to be from the center, you would actually have to select the center. So let's say, okay, I want that table to actually not be 6 feet. I want it to be 7 feet. Okay, now I could do the scale, but even if I put in a scale, it's going to scale both directions. That's not quite what I wanted, right? If I go up to this quick dimensioning or measure, it's 3 feet by 6 feet. The client just found this perfect table. It's absolutely exactly what they want. It's still 3 feet, but it's 7 feet long instead of 6 feet long. You don't want to redraw it, right? There's a wonderful command. I use it like all the time. It's up here above modify, and it's called stretch. Okay, stretch can also be put in the command line as S and enter. So if you can't find stretch, or you just like the keyboard, you can put S and enter. But the way stretch works, I haven't actually started it. Here's stretch. It says to select objects. Okay, you would think, well, I could just select this object, right? It actually doesn't like it if you just select an object. You actually have to hit a crossing. So I just hit escape. I'm going to start it again. What I mean is crossing is, remember how you go from right to left, whether up or down, you cross over what you want to be selected. So it's going to select this line, this line, and this line if I cross like this. Okay, it selected the whole thing, but these are the ones that it actually crossed over. So if I hit enter, now it's asking for a base point. So I'm going to select this corner right here. Notice what happens. It pulls it out, or, quote, stretches it. Now I am on ortho, so it is going to pull it straight, but if I was off of ortho, look what could happen. You could really get a funky looking table that way. So it is good to make sure that you are either on ortho or that you have your tracking with the green showing that it is going straight. But I can literally pull it out this direction and say I want to stretch it 1 foot and enter. So now this is a 7 foot long table instead of a 6 foot long table. Watch what happens though if I try to do it through a window selection. If I go to stretch and I go from left to right, remember left to right is blue compared to right to left is green. If I go this way and select, notice what happens. It says 0 found. It will do absolutely nothing. It kicks you right out of the command. I can't even select it. Now, if I did it over here with this one, remember these are lines. So it doesn't even recognize this as a full polyline rectangle. Okay, let's do it the other way. Stretch. I'm going right to left. Notice now it only has these 3 lines selected. Just like it was doing over here, except it selected this one, but didn't stretch it. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. My base point, I can select the middle of this. I can still pull it out exactly 12 inches by going 12 and enter. Now it's 7 feet, but let's undo this. So now it's back to 6. And I'm going to go to stretch again, but I'm going to select it through the window. If I go this way and hit enter, it selected this line. That was the only line within my window. If you do stretch this way, it will not stretch everything. It'll actually just move whatever you selected. So if I hit enter and I select my base point, let's say at the middle, or I can select it up here, it will merely move that line. So if I'm in ortho, go down there and select ortho, and I pull it out 12, it moved it 12 inches away, but it didn't actually select those 2 lines. So the crossing is the way to make stretch work. Otherwise, you're literally just doing move. Okay, and you can go to the move command for that one, right? Okay, so that is stretch. I'm going to undo that because that looks like a funny table that way, right? Okay, the other one that I wanted to, before I get out of that, I'm going to erase, with the erase command, this table. And let's review the rotate just one more time. So I'm going to rotate. Here's the rotate button. And I'm going to select this table. And I need the table to go up and down rather than this way. They want it to fit in their room better. Okay, so I'm going to hit rotate. I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to rotate it around this midpoint. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to pull it straight up, make sure my tracking is on, or I could go down and hit the ortho. And I'm going to click. So now it's rotated this direction instead of horizontal. And now let's draw some walls around this so I can show you some other things with stretch. So I'm going to go to line up here. And let's see, I'm going to actually start from like the middle of this, but I'm just going to pull it this way. And I'm going to click. And I'm going to start my walls, but I want ortho to be on. I want those to be perfectly straight. So I'm going to go up, let's say 8 feet, enter. And I'm going to go across, let's say 15 feet, and enter. And I'm going to come down 12 feet, and enter. And then I'm going to hit enter again. Okay, it's just a single line. Do you remember how we made a thickness of a wall from last class? We went to offset. So I'm going to select offset. And remember, the first thing you do is select a distance. Okay, so I'm going to select 6 and enter. That is how far I want to offset my lines. That is how thick the wall is. So I'm going to select this line right here, and I'm going to pull it out by clicking on the left side. I'm going to click this line and pull it straight up so it goes on the outside. And I'm going to select this line and pull it outside and click. And then I'm going to hit enter to exit that entire command. Now, do you remember how we would finish those little corners? Are you saying maybe fillet? Oh, I hope you are. If you're not, then I'll just remind you, fillet. Yes, you can create rounded edges, or you can just create an actual corner edge. So I'm going to hit fillet. Radius usually is the first thing you need to do, and usually the default is 0. So let's see if it is. I'm going to select this line, and this line, and it connects it. It connected it with a radius of 0. I can zoom in to check, but that is the default. So radius of 0 means it's just going to create no curve. And then I'm going to go to fillet, and I'm going to select this line and this line. So now I have some walls done. But notice what else happens with stretch. I'm going to go to stretch again. And the client said, you know what? This room just got 6 inches longer. Okay, so it needs to be pulled out another 6 inches. Okay, you would have to go right to left, whether you start at the top or you start at the bottom. I'm going to go right to left. I'm going to go all through these parts of the walls. I'm going to click the other side. I'm going to hit enter. I'm done selecting. And even if I don't select a base point actually on the walls, if I just click out here and pull it straight up and hit 6 and enter, it just stretched it another 6 inches. But look what happens if I go to stretch and just select like this corner. Oh, they want it to be 6 inches longer. I select the corner. I hit enter. I select a base point and I start pulling up. It's only going to select that corner. You do have to go all the way through for it to stretch the entire wall. And notice it does get distorted with the wall thickness up there by just pulling it up. So you do need to kind of think through on what you need to stretch. Okay, so that is stretch. But now we want to put some chairs around this table. We actually did this the last lecture. Okay, so I'm going to make the same kind of chair. So I'm going to go to polyline. And I'm going to start about right here because I know I can move it, right? In fact, I could draw it out here if I wanted to. So I'm going to draw a line, a polyline. I'm going to come down 18 and hit enter. I'm going to pull it to the left, hit 9 and enter. Then I want to make an arc. So I'm going to hit A and enter. It's now ready for my arc. So I'm going to let it hover on this line. On this endpoint and pull it straight and click. So it creates a perfect arc, but it's still an arc. So I have to hit line or L, and enter. And then I can connect it back to the beginning. I want this chair to be perfectly in the midpoint of the side of the table. So I am going to go to move. It might be at the midpoint, but it might not. And I'm going to select the chair and hit enter. And I'm going to say, okay, the midpoint of the chair has to line up with the midpoint of the table. Oh my goodness, did you see how close that was? Here's the midpoint of the chair, and there's the midpoint of the table. It is just slightly off. So if I hover here, I have to actually select this. Okay, now it's ready to actually move. And then I hover on the midpoint and pull it back. Notice it's already lined up with it right now. So I click again, and now it's lined up with exactly the midpoint of this table, just a few inches off. Okay, so if I go copy, remember the copy command right here, okay, and select the chair, it selects the whole thing because it's a polyline chair, hit enter. Doesn't really matter where I want my base point because I just want to copy one over here. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to say I want to copy one exactly 2 feet away. Ooh, that looks way far away from the table. So maybe I hit 3 feet. I'm going to undo. I'm going to try that again. Copy, base point, and pulling it. Yeah, I definitely hit 3 feet. So let's go 2 feet this time. That looks way better. Now, I could pull it this way and go 2 feet, and most likely I would because I'm in the copy command. But let me show you something else you can do. I can go to mirror, which is a brand new command for us, and I love this one. Mirror is wonderful because you can mirror anything over an imaginary mirror line. What I mean by that is I'm going to go to mirror, and I want to mirror this one on the other side of this chair. So I want it mirrored exactly so that it's 2 feet away from this one, just like this one was. So I'm going to select this one. This one's the one I want to mirror over the other one. And I'm going to hit enter. My mirror line, if you look at the mirror, it is a certain distance from you, and you want it to go a certain distance the other side, the exact distance. So I would have to have my mirror line exactly in the middle of this chair. Then it's going to flip this chair over that mirror line to the other side. So if I select the middle of that line of the chair and pull it straight out, ortho is working here, and click, then it asks me, do I want to erase the original? Erase source object. In this case, no. So I hit enter. Now it mirrored it exactly over this chair. Okay, so you're thinking, well, I could have just copied it there, right? But what if I want to mirror it over the table? Okay, we only have 3 chairs on this table. Maybe it would be nice to have 3 chairs on the other side. Instead of copying and rotating and all that, you can go to mirror, and you can select all 3 of these chairs and hit enter. Now my mirror line is right in the middle of this table, so it can flip it to the other side. So I'm going to select the midpoint of that end of the table and pull it straight. And even before I finish, it's ready to go. And I'm going to click the other edge of the mirror, just out here. Erase source objects? No. So now I have 3 chairs on either side of the table. Woohoo! They are ready for dinner. Okay, they might want one at the end, but they're pretty much ready. So for the next thing I want to show you, let's draw another wall. Going to line. I'm going to select or let it snap to the endpoint. And I'm going to switch from ortho to polar down here. So polar, remember, it will snap to an actual angle, and I have it set for my 45 degrees. So I'm going to let it snap to that 45-degree angle, but I'm going to say, you know what, I want it to be 9 feet long. So I hit 9 feet and enter, and then I'm going to hit enter again. Now if I want a wall here, I do have to go to that wonderful command called offset. Here's the offset. I am going to give it an actual distance of 6, which is the last distance that I put in. So it is the default right now. So I'm going to hit enter because 6 is what I need. I'm going to select this wall. I'm going to offset it to this side and click. And then I'm going to hit enter to exit the command. And I bet you remember now how to make those intersect with each other. If you said fillet, you are correct. Wish I could like throw you a piece of candy through the screen or something. That would be cool. Okay, so fillet is what I need. I'm going to select this line to fill it with this line. So I'm clicking both. And it's done. I got my wall. Okay, yeah, I know. The room isn't quite done. But let's say that the client, instead of wants a table here, he wants like a counter over here on the wall. Maybe they're going to put windows in over here. But he wants a counter to be over aligned with this wall. Okay, there's a lot of things you can do. One thing is you probably want to get rid of these 3 chairs. So you go to erase and you say, I want to get rid of these 3 chairs. So I'm doing a crossing through the 3 chairs and hit enter. Okay, the counter doesn't need to be 3 feet. It needs to be 2 feet. So what did we just learn on how to kind of make that 2 feet instead of 3 feet? He still wants the same length. Okay, so we can't use scale. So we're going to use stretch. If you said stretch, here's another piece of candy. Woohoo! Okay, here's stretch. I'm going to do a crossing, so I'm going to go from the right side and cross through everything. I can't like start here because it would only select a corner. So I'm going to select outside. I'm going to cross through these 3 lines. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to select a point even out here. Works just fine. I'm going to pull it in and say I want it to be 12 inches shorter. So now this is 2 feet. We can check it. We can go to our quick measuring. It is still 2 feet by 7 feet. Okay, but I need it aligned with this wall. Yes, I could go to move. I could go to rotate, but there's a wonderful command called align. So if you go to modify and click, align happens to be this one in the bottom left corner. I don't know of a shortcut except to actually type the word align. I don't think you can do A and enter, so you'd actually have to start typing ALIGN, and eventually it would get it. But align is here. And how it works is it says to select objects. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? That's how they all seem to work. So I'm going to do, you can do a window or a crossing, but I'm going to do a crossing through all of this. I want to take the chairs with me. Okay, select objects. I'm done selecting objects. I found 4. Awesome. So I'm going to hit enter. And the way this works is it aligns the first point with the second point and the third point with the fourth point. Let me show you. This is my first point. I want this point to line up with this corner of the wall. So I'm going to hit, this is my first point. It will literally draw a line. It'll disappear when you're done. But this is going to be my second point. It's asking for that first destination point. So this point has to go to this point. So I'm going to click this one. Then it's asking for the second source point. I want this point to align with this wall. Okay, so this is my second source point. And then I just want it to align to the wall. So anywhere along this wall, I can select to align it to. So I can just go to the end. Now I know that's 9 feet and this is 7 feet, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to click this point. Then it's asking for a third source. We don't need one, so I'm going to hit enter. Now it's asking a very interesting question. Scale objects based on alignment points. If I say yes instead of no, it will literally scale this up from 7 to 9 feet. I want the same dimension. So I'm going to say no. Boom. It immediately moves, rotates, aligns with that edge. I'm going to undo and show how it would appear if I actually said yes, scale up. I'm going to go to the same thing. I'm going to go to align. I'm going to select these objects and hit enter. Then my first point is here to here. My second point is here to here. And I'm going to hit enter. I don't have a third source point. And it's scale objects based on alignment points. Yes. Notice what happened. It got bigger. It is now 9 feet long. But you go to measure. Notice it says it's 2 feet 6 and 27 and 32 inches. So if you say scale, it will scale the entire thing. Another way to check is if I go to the distance. These were 18 inches across. If I go from here to here, it now says it's 1 foot 11 and 5/32. So that wouldn't be very helpful. You wouldn't want it to scale up. So actually, I'm going to undo and 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 undo. And I went too far because I actually undid that last one. So to undo and undo would be to redo. I don't think I've showed you this one. So redo means to redo what you were working on before. So I can at least get it back to this point so it actually undoes your undo or redoes it. We'll just say it that way. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is a thing that they call break. There are actually 2 versions of break. One is, and they're both under modify, one is just simply break, which to be honest, I never use because it breaks it depending on where you click. And if you didn't want to click at that exact point, it will still break it there. So let's say that I wanted to, make an opening here. If I go to break, it's kind of dependent on where I click, and I can't give an exact point. So if I click here and then start pulling away, notice how it's breaking away the middle of that line. An easier way to do that would actually be to use trim. Okay. So most of the time, what I use break for is something like, let's say they want this table to come out as a triangle here. Okay, I could draw a line and then erase this. Or another way would be maybe to break a point. So I'm going to break at the point, and then I can actually select. First of all, I want to break this line. It says select objects. So I'm going to select this line, but then it asks specify first breakpoint. Then it will allow me to actually pick a specific point. So I can select the midpoint. I just clicked, and it actually broke this into 2 pieces. Now, you can't see it. There's select, which is not going to show much except for these 3 blue lines are actually one, and this one is another. Okay, so you can see that it broke. They go up here to your utilities. I'm going to select utilities. And remember I showed you point style by typing in PT type or P type? Here is an actual way to just select it. So I'm going to select point style. And I'm going to say, you know what? I want it to look like this now. And say, okay. I still don't see anything. It actually doesn't work for break. If I wanted to stretch that out, when I go to stretch now, and I just do a crossing through basically this line, I'm crossing actually through the end of this line and the end of this line. So if I click and hit enter, I can actually snap right here at this endpoint, which is the endpoint of both lines now because there's 2. And then when I pull straight out, notice it actually can pull that out at an angle. So I can say, you know what, I need that to be 3 feet long. And now I've got this funky looking counter, which is exactly what they wanted. So that's pretty cool. So break, it depends on what you want to use it for. Another thing would be, let's say this wall needed to actually turn a corner. I could say modify, break, and I could select this line. And it's asking for the first point. So if I needed to break it at the middle, which, it happens a lot, I'm going to click here. And then I can select, I can go to rotate. And I can select this line. And I can say I want to rotate that from this point straight out this way. So pulling my line straight down. And then all I have to do is offset that corner with offset. And notice it's asking the distance. It is still 6. So I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to offset this line, pull it straight up and click. And then hit enter because I don't need to offset anything else. And then you remember how to clean that edge. You just go to fill it and go click and click. And it cleans that edge for us. So that would be another way of actually using break. There are actually a lot of ways to use it, but those are just 2. But let's say that the client needs to divide this wall into 3 pieces. They're going to actually put some sort of painting or maybe a partition. Maybe it's an office and they need 3 partitions here or 3 equal spaces here to put their little office space. How about we move this a little out of the way? I just went to move. I'm just going to kind of move this over. So the easiest way to divide this would be to actually go to the command divide. I use this one quite a bit actually. Divide is actually under draw. And you're thinking, but it's a modify thing. Yeah, it is. They still put it under draw. It happens to be this one, which is right next to multiple points. Okay, so divide, or you could type in div at the command line. So I'm going to select divide. Okay, it will divide whatever I select into equal portions. So it's saying select object to divide. I'm going to select this wall line. Now it's asking enter the number of segments. Well, I want 3 equal spaces. So I want to divide it into 3 and enter. Oh, look at that. those just magically appeared. Those are now points. Okay, remember I changed up here the point type? Those magically appeared. If I went back to utilities and went to point style and just selected the dot and hit OK, this is how it would normally appear if I hadn't changed that. So you might not even see that it actually divided. It did, but you don't see it. And when you select it, it still shows it as a solid line. So it just created points within the line. It didn't actually break it as it would for that break command that I showed you over here. So I can actually create those little partitions. I can go to line, and because I have my OSnap, remember I said that I put it on node? Node is actually a point. Way cool. So because it's on node, it will snap to the node, which is the point. Notice I could let it snap to the midpoint, but I don't want it in the midpoint. I want those 3 equal ones. So I'm going to click and pull out my line and hit enter, and I'm going to hit enter again to start the line command. I don't want the midpoint. I'm going to let it snap to node. I'm going to click, pull my line out, and enter, and I'm going to go to the last one. I'm going to go line, and this one is at the corner, and I'm going to pull it out. I have 3 equal spaces. If you're not sure, that's where you can go to your quick measurement, and it says 4'2", 4'2", 4'2". Yay! Let's say, though, that your client didn't want 3 equal ones. He wanted each to be exactly 4 foot. Okay, remember on the quick measurement it said 4'2"? He wanted it to be 4 feet in between each one. Okay, we can do that. I'm going to do undo and undo and undo and undo and undo and undo and undo because I do need to get rid of that points. And undo and undo, and there's my points. So I'm going to undo one more time. Okay, so this is now not divided anymore. If I go to line, I can double check. It will not snap to a node. There is no node. Okay, there is another command right next to divide. So here's divide. That gives it divides a line into equal segments. Okay, but there's also measure. That is different than this measure. This measure is actually to measure something. This measure over here is actually to create equally measured, not equally measured. You're dividing your line into measurements that you actually give it. Okay, so remember the client wants it 4 feet apart, not equally divided, but exactly 4 feet. Okay, this is where I would use measure. If I use measure, I clicked it, it's now saying select object to measure. I'm going to select this line. Now it's asking specified length of segment, not how many pieces I want to divide it in, but the specified length. So I'm going to say 4 feet and enter. Now notice, yes, my point style is still that big one, but I have a little extra at the end. So these are exactly 4 feet apart. So if I go to line and I let it snap to node and bring it out, and then snap to node and bring it out, and enter, and do line again, snap to node and bring it out. When I go to the quick measure, they're exactly 4 feet. But I do have that extra little space at the end because it wasn't exactly divided along this line. Okay, so I've got 3 spaces exactly 4 feet apart. But you know what? The client said that this divider needed to be exactly 3'6" long. And did you notice when I was drawing those that I was just kind of pulling it out and clicking? I wasn't even trying to create a certain length. They're all weird lengths. Now, I could do stretch, but do you realize you would have to do math to do stretch? Because 3'4" and 25, 30 seconds from, let's say, they need to be 3'6" would require some math, and maybe some math that I don't want to do. Let's just say I don't. Okay, there is a wonderful command called lengthen, and lengthen is under modify. Okay, it happens to be this one right here. Lengthen, you actually have to start typing it on the command line if you want to use your keyboard, but lengthen will lengthen anything that you want. Well, lines, polylines. Okay, so I selected this, and the first thing to ask is select an object to measure. So not only will it lengthen it, but it'll tell you how long it is. So I click this, and it actually tells me down here it's 3'4" and 25, 30 seconds. Okay, that's nice, but I actually need it to be 3'6". I have several options: delta, percent, total, dynamic. We probably won't use all of those. I almost never use percent, but total I use a lot. Total is the total length I want that line to be. So I'm going to select total, or I can hit T and enter, and then it asks specify total length. And look at that. It actually says 4'6". I must have done this like recently because it shouldn't say that. But I'm going to say that I want it to be 3'6" and hit enter. Now it's asking for the object to change. This is where you have to know what part you want of that line you selected to change. So I'm going to go to this one that's short and kind of zoom in. If I select this part, notice it's lengthening it this way. Same with this one or this one. This one is really close to 3'6", so look how much it's going to lengthen. You can see the difference. But I want it to come out this way, 3'6". So I'm going to select this portion or this side of the line. And I can keep going. I'm going to select this line. I'm going to select this line. Now all 3 of those lines are exactly 3'6" long. That's a wonderful way to either correct a mistake or to lengthen something, just like we said. Let's change that P type to be just a regular point. So I'm going to go to point style, and I'm going to select a little point and say, okay. Because now if I print, those won't show up, which would be very nice, right? The last things I want to show you are actually things that are utilities or properties of your drawing. I've already showed you the quick measuring. I've also shown you the distance where you have to pick 2 points. So if I wanted to measure this exact line, I could go to distance and go click, and it'll tell me. It will say before I even finish clicking. So sometimes it's good to use that for other things besides just clicking a line. Now notice, with polyline, I can't even get that dimension, so just clicking it won't help. So that might be a time where I could use the distance command to actually see the distance of what that is over there. But notice some of my other options over here. I'm going to move this a little. I can actually measure a radius. Okay, yeah, I could just click the circle, but I want to know the radius of this circle or this curve over here. Because if I actually click that, it doesn't tell me the radius of that curve. I don't know what that radius was. So if I go over here under measure and hit radius and then select this arc, notice it tells me it's a radius of 9. It also lets me do several other things, which are all underneath here, but it kind of starts the command and allows me to do more than just the distance or the radius or the angle. Look at here, area. That is something I also could do. I could select it right now, and it wants to know, what do I want the area of? I want to know the area of this chair. It's saying for a corner point, but look at one of the options down here. Object. Because this is a polyline, instead of trying to get all these points around the arc, I could hit O for object, O, and enter, and select this, and boom. It not only tells me the square inches, but it tells me the square feet. Okay, those are weird numbers, and I don't know why I want this, the area of a chair, but hey, maybe your client needs to know the exact area for their room so they can know how much space that's going to take. Okay, but it is also located over here without selecting anything. I can hit area, and it's starting out the same way. It's asking for a corner, or I could hit an O for object. But let's say that my client needs to know the area of this space right here. So this right here, let's say this was the corner. See the green lines? That square is actually the space that they want to know the area of, because they're going to count this as a room and this over here there's a room. So they want to know the area of this room. This is where you would have to select points because I don't have an object to select for this. So I'm going to select this point, and I'm going to select this point. And as soon as I select the second point, it's starting to create a green kind of measuring tool. I'm going to hit the third one. And then remember, I can come over here and line it up with that edge and get my green 2 lines to show, and I can click. And as I'm clicking, it is actually adding up an area. It's not showing me yet, but I can either click this point at the end, or I can hit enter, because it will go back to the starting point. So it's saying the square feet of that room is 187.5. That's awesome. That's so cool, because I can do that for each of my rooms and tell my client exactly the square footage for their room. Maybe my client needs to know what the square footage is minus the table. Oh my goodness, really? Do you want to do the addition? You could do, square foot of this, you can find the square foot of this, and then do some subtraction. But what's cool is AutoCAD will let you do it as one kind of fluid, kind of sort of moment. Okay, it is a little detail, but you go to area, and notice we have some other options. Object, we did that one. Add area, subtract area. To do a subtraction within an area, you do have to add an area first. So I can't just select this and then say subtract. I do have to go to add area first. So I'm going to select that. Then I do the same thing I was doing a while ago. I'm going to pick this point, and this point, and this point. I'm going to line it up with this edge. I'm going to select this point. I'm going to hit enter. And now I actually can subtract an area. Before, that option was not even available. It just ended the command. So now I can hit S for subtract, or I could go down there and click it and enter. And now it's wanting to know the first point of what I want to select. If this was an actual full object, I could hit O and enter, but it's not. So I'm going to select this point, and this point, and this point. Notice it's making it kind of a brownie orange because it's going to subtract it. This point, and then I will hit enter. Now I know that that was actually 24.5, so my total square feet, notice my numbers, is 163. So it did the subtraction for me. I didn't have to do math. Okay, sometimes math is really fun, but sometimes it might just, fry your brain. Okay, so that's a cool way to do that. Now I could turn this actually into an object. Let me show you that real quickly. If I turn that into an object, remember how to do that from our last one? I actually go to join. So here, that's linked, I'm sorry. This one is join with the 2 arrows pointing to each other. I go to join, and I say I want to select this polyline with this line, and then hit enter. Now, this is actually one object. So I can now do the area with this as an object by going to area. I'm going to say A and enter for adding an area. I'm going to click this and this, just like I've been doing. This, line that up, this, and enter. Same thing, 187.5 square feet. But now I'm going to hit S for subtract, and then I can hit O for object, O and enter, and actually select that object instead of having to do all those points. And hit enter, and I get the same results. So that's way cool. It depends on what you have done, what you have, as an object versus just lines. But those are some ways that you can use your area. And, oh yes, I did not show you an angle. So you can figure out an angle. Let's say that I forgot what this angle was. Okay, I know. I made it 45. And I can double check that. I can go to angle, and I can select this line and this line. And notice it says it's 135 degrees of an angle, which is perfect because see how it's not a 45? It actually is coming from this and going all the way to there. So that is 135. Or 45 from your 360 line, that would be right here, okay? But even if I stretched this, notice I am just using the stretch, and I just pulled it, I don't know what that angle is because it's now no longer within that 45, 315, so I can go to angle and select those 2 lines, and it'll tell me to the exact degree, feet, and inches of what that angle is. So that's another wonderful way to check your progress on your drawings. And the last thing is there are 2 ways to kind of see what things are. Remember how we can just select something and it'll tell me some quick properties? What if I want to know more than just these quick properties? What if I want to know more information about this? 2 ways. One is the list command, and this one I actually just type. I start typing LI, which happens to be what it is, and I go to list. Then I can actually select this object, which is the chair, and hit enter, and it'll bring up some very important, what they call data and coordinates for that. You can see the start angle, the end angle, the exact absolute coordinates that those were started at. I did not start at an exact point, so those are the exact points that those are located. It tells me the square inches, the square feet, the length of going all the way around. So that is cool. You actually have to, instead of just hitting escape, see I'm hitting escape and it's not doing anything, I actually have to click somewhere on my drawing to get rid of that. Otherwise it'll just keep going and be very annoying. But there's another way. See where it says properties up here? If I actually select this arrow at the very end, it brings up this wonderful box. Now, it's saying no selection. I haven't selected anything yet. So I could either select something and then click that, or if I select now, it will still bring up my quick properties, but now it brings up other information about it, like the thickness, the X vertex, the area, just like it did before with list, the length. So it brings up different properties. So it kind of depends on if you want to do list or properties on how to see certain information about certain things. It will work for a square. Oops, my quick properties is right in the way. So you can see information about maybe, oh, that's not even a square. That's just a line. This. If I select that, it'll give me the information about that, including the area. And it will stay there literally until you actually hit the X. So you could have this up the whole time if you wanted to see properties by just clicking and just reading them. Notice if you select multiple properties, it will show less and less information because it varies on what that information is. It'll only show you what is common for both. And that's the same with the quick properties here. But I have to actually hit the X to get that to disappear. And I hope you have fun with your new editing. And thank you so much.